Karen, the oil spill has given some hope to some backers of comprehensive energy reform legislation, environmental legislation. It's assumed to be dead in the Senate, effectively. But yesterday on the Sunday talk shows, there was a little bit of a different theme. And, of course, everyone has baseball on the brain. Take a look at this.
I think rather than try to hit a grand slam home run, I'd like to work with Senator Kerry and others to try to do, hit some singles and develop nuclear power, battery technology that will help us deal with our environmental concerns.
I'm delighted to hear John say he'd like to work with us. But let me tell you, Joe DiMaggio and Ted Williams and Babe Ruth never stepped up to bat in the World Series and said, I want to try to hit a single.
Karen, I don't think I endorse the baseball historian John Kerry. Ted Williams, of course, only appeared in one World Series in 1946, and he couldn't buy a single, much less a grand slam. But
Rick,
regardless,
at least he didn't mention Manny Ortiz, his favorite Red Sox player from 2004. Remember that. Now it's time for our post-politics segment. Joining us today is Chris Cillizza of the Washington Post. Chris, it's primary day eve.
I'm so excited. This is like Christmas Eve. It's almost better than the actual day.
And you get to do it every 4 weeks, too.
I get so disappointed. I always get disappointed as a kid because, Christmas Day was only one day, and I wanted to, extend it out. And I get bummed about this, too. Too many primaries in one day. Too much good, too much candy in the candy store.
Rather spread it out. Well, let's look at, compared to May, when we had primaries that had that general theme of voter anger, incumbents against incumbents, is there a common theme we should be looking for tomorrow across these these races?
Now, I would say no. That doesn't mean we won't find one. But look, you have races in California, in Maine, in Arkansas. I think a few will pop up. You're just talking about Nevada Senate. Obviously, that's an important race. Harry Reid looking very vulnerable. Arkansas Senate, Blanche Lincoln in deep trouble in her runoff. And then California is California. We're always interested in it. Meg Whitman has spent $80 million. Carly Fiorina has spent less than $80 million on the Senate race. But kind of a fascinating potential ticket there with two very successful businesswomen, Whitman for governor and likely Fiorina for Senate. So there's a lot of fascinating individual storylines. I don't want to go into huge nerddom like the fact that Bill Clinton has waded into the Maine governor's race. I'll leave that for maybe even too nerdy for Top Line. But
that's for the outtakes.
Yeah, exactly. That's the B matter. That's on the DVD. But there's a lot of different interesting storylines. I'm not sure we have one narrative that ties everything together.
Chris, I want your take on Nevada. You have three candidates who all say they're Tea Partiers, and some are more Tea Party-ish than the others. Right. And is Harry Reid potentially breathing a sigh of relief, depending on the outcome of tomorrow's primary?
My guess, Rick, would be if Sharon Angle wins, and she's got to be considered the front runner. All polling suggests she's ahead at the moment. If she wins, the Reid forces are very likely to say, we got the candidate we want. She's too conservative on a lot of issues. She's got a record that we're going to expose in the state assembly. And we're going to be able to make this into a choice rather than a referendum on Harry Reid. That said, look at all those polls, and golly, there are a lot of them out there in Nevada in particular. I feel like the Las Vegas Review-Journal, and bless them for it, but does a poll every 2 days. All that polling shows Harry Reid in the mid to low 40s. And that, to me, is dangerous for any incumbent. We saw it with John Corzine. We saw it with Arlen Specter. If you're 100% known by the electorate, yet 4 in 10 or so are supportive of you, it's hard to build up to that 45, 46, 47, and obviously 50% mark. So maybe a little bit of premature celebration.
Chris, I want to shift to domestic politics or domestic policy here, the oil spill. And that Washington Post, ABC News poll that Rick and I were talking about earlier, that the federal government is getting far more negative reviews over this than Katrina. How can the White House escape this than reflecting on them? So far, it seems like President Obama has been a little bit shielded, a little bit insulated. How long can they continue?
Well, at some point, the osmosis, the bad negativity, the osmosis will leach onto President Obama. I think the problem here, in a way that's not Hurricane Katrina, is this is man-made, right? And therefore, we expect we're going to be able to fix it, and we probably should have saw it in the first place before it happened. The other thing that I think works against the administration is, unlike flooding, across an entire city and across an entire region, people view this as, well, there's a pipe that's leaking. Why can't we just fix it? Now, of course, there are complications to it. It's a mile underwater. Their technology, they've tried a million different things that haven't worked. But the basic simplicity of the problem, I think, complicates the political argument because people say, there's a leak. You fix a leak. I had a leak in my pipe and I fixed it. It's not the same argument, but for people, they look at it and they say, why can't the government do this? Remember, the baseline for the government is to handle problems that arise, whether they be foreign or domestic.
And very briefly, Chris, this is going to be going on for some time. Even if they contain that leak, we're still going to see these images of birds forever.
Rick, two things I would say. I noticed this during the Obama press conference last week. You had a split screen of the pipe
Right.
pumping oil out, and then you had him talking. Now you have split screens of birds and other animals, and the White House talking about how things are going better. It's just very tough imagery. This is a great television story.
Yeah.
They're going to keep being shown, and the president has to work to combat that. It's very
Not
difficult.
great imagery for the White House. Of course, they don't want those birds out there. You don't want people looking at that. That's what it's going to be. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That does it for this edition. Twitter.com/TheNote.